What's up, guys? So, I know this one's taking a while to get out, and I apologize. I do get busy sometimes, and YouTube is not my day job. So, anyway, let's get right into this bi-weekly. I don't know. It's not even a schedule anymore. It's whenever the fuck I want to do it. Let's get into this Q&A. Thoughts on power cleans for increasing the deadlift. I've never been explosive fast, so thought they might help on a secondary day, though Sam thinks they're dog shit. I think they're dog shit too, for that purpose. I think power cleans are a great general exercise to help build like general strength and explosiveness, but specific to deadlift, just do lighter deadlifts explosively, um, and put maximal intent into your top sets of deadlifts whenever you're doing them. And that's something where even if you want to do like an EMOM type thing, and bring the percentage down some, but you'll get into that state of fatigue sooner, and just doing like doubles and stuff. Your explosiveness is only going to increase to a certain degree anyway. A lot of people are just naturally more explosive than others. Not to say that it cannot improve, but I wouldn't like get caught up in the trying to be explosive thing, because at the end of the day, just like for competition's sake, I don't know a better way to put it. Like a 700-pound grindy deadlift third attempt beats a 675-pound explosive deadlift attempt, third attempt on the platform. So you can certainly train it to a degree, but I would just deadlift faster. Like, so don't overthink it. Have you ever seen guys who are very hip dominant squatters? If so, what did they do to get their quads more involved? So really, if you want to get your quads more involved, and this is one of those things, are you squatting for your quads or are you squatting for your squat? Because if you're squatting for your squat to have a bigger squat number, just do whatever's the strongest. And if that's being posterior chain dominant, hip dominant, quad dominant, whatever, by all means, just go with it. I think even now, like they've done some EMG studies and stuff, and it seems like there's just as much quad activation in like a wider low bar stance squat as there is like a high bar. However, there's not the same stretch and range of motion, so I don't. That gets really into the weeds with me. It seems just looking with my eyes and observing lifters that the high bar like Oli type squatters do have more developed quads generally, and that's what I would say to do, for the most part. Work in some high bar stuff. Even Paris has a really good thing where he'll do. I can't remember if he does leg extensions or leg press, maybe both, before he'll do SSB squats, to pre-fatigue his quads, and so his quads do end up being the failure point when he does his SSB squats. Where typically when you're doing pretty much any squat movement, your back is going to fatigue before your quads will. So he gets his quads already fatigued a little bit and then goes into it. One more thing I'll say, and I give this to my clients a lot, and it's just good general practice. Just slightly flex your quads before you start to descend on your squat. Like, don't full on like you're trying to impress somebody with your striated quads, bro. But just a little bit of flex and a little bit of thought into your quads before starting the descent on your squat will help get them involved, regardless of what stance you're using. But if you do want to get more out of your quads for squatting, typically it's the basics. Go to a more narrow stance type squat, elevate your heels, try to push your knees forward, etc. But I really do like, in this case specifically, what Paris does in regards to pre-fatiguing them, as he is doing them more for bodybuilding purposes, but still training his strength progressions as well. Username origin. I said it a long time ago before on the main channel. However, that video has been privated. Now you'll have to go to the member section and sign up for a membership where I explain the origins of my username, and it has nothing to do with lifting. Giggity. How to structure my training and eating when I work 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., 2:45, 10, trying to lose weight. I asked this guy, I assume guy, here I am assuming genders in 2024, cancel me, if it was 5 days per week, and I never got a response. So I'm going to assume 5 days a week. Honestly, like that's a pretty typical work schedule. So it's, do you want to get up early and work out before work? Um, is your work physical in nature? And do you want to get your strength stuff and bodybuilding stuff in before that, or do you want to go in after? And then do it then. So that's going to make a big difference. And I don't know if your job's physical or not. But really, it's as simple as, are you going to get up early and put in an hour and a half, or are you going to go in after work and put in an hour and a half? Me personally, I would go the early route. That's just where I'm at in my life. I do train early on the weekends, and I like that better. I can ingest some caffeine, and it's not going to affect my sleep later on. Um, but I mean, it's you're gonna have to dial in your diet, and it's just, I wish I could give you something super specific, but there's not really anything super specific to give you with the context I have, other than you're gonna have to find a what is a caloric deficit for you. Try to eat plenty of protein, and maintain that deficit. Fill the rest out with carbs and fats as you like, as you prefer. It's not really going to make too much of a difference. And just figuring out if you want to train before or after work. If your job is physical in nature, I wouldn't worry too much about doing cardio. If you have a sedentary job, I would try to add in some cardio at the end of your training sessions, and just find some basic split. There's plenty of generic programs out there that suit your needs, in regards to trying to accomplish your either aesthetic goals or strength goals or performance goals or whatever lies in conjunction with you losing weight. Thoughts on the future of natty strength sports? I think they're in a good place. I think too many people make too many assumptions. I want to vomit every time I hear drug tested doesn't mean drug free. Obviously, there's going to be people that cheat, but people make it sound like everybody is on drugs, or everybody at the top is on drugs, and I don't find that to be the case. That's just not reality, especially in America, where we have untested options aplenty, and there's no real consequence for going that route. I mean, there are potential consequences, as steroids are a felony to manufacture and buy and sell and stuff, but you really don't hear a lot about that. When's the last time you saw like one of these big untested Instagram lifters face legal issues for that? So I think natty strength sports are in a good place, and I think they're still on an upward trajectory. If I could design my own strength sport, what it would it look like? It would look a lot like powerlifting, and it would be like a front squat and a Larson press, and then how far of a distance can you go in 1 hour on an elliptical machine? And I don't know how I would calculate the formula to total all that up together, but that would be the way I would go. Do I have any tips for sleeping earlier and just maintaining a consistent sleep schedule in general? Usually sleep 6.5 to 7 hours on my working days and wake up without an alarm on weekends. Often end up pulling all-nighters when I'm faced with exams and assignments. Well, with exams and assignments, I would maybe try to not pull all-nighters and be a little more intentional with your time on a day-to-day basis and get that in instead of cramming. Otherwise, like it's a matter of creating habits. I know for me, I'm typically asleep by 8:30, 9 o'clock at the latest. Usually, every now and then, like I'm not perfect and shit happens, but I know like at generally right around 7 o'clock, I tell my son to get in the shower, and then when he gets out of the shower, he and I will lay in bed and watch YouTube videos till 7:45 ish, and then it's lights out sometime between 7:45 and 8. I may watch an extra YouTube video or two on my phone before I go to sleep, which allegedly is a bad habit, but I really don't have a problem falling asleep or staying asleep for the most part. So it's just about creating habits, in my opinion. Your body will grow accustomed to it. It might be hard at first, but you've got to stick to whatever your nighttime habits and routines are. And once that habit really gets built in, like, I don't have to try anymore. It's just normal life for me. Time frames and goals for cuts/bulks. What's the structure you recommend, whether it be gain/lose X amount or do it for X amount of time? So I like, and this is me personally, I like aggressive cuts. I like to cut as fast as I can, as hard as I can, with the goal of getting down to whatever weight goal it is, and then immediately getting back into maintenance or bulk calories. I think especially for natural lifters, there's really two ways that you're in an anabolic state of being. One is when you're sleeping, the other is when you're in a caloric surplus. So you want to be in that surplus, at least maintenance, if not a small, slight surplus, as much as you can, and you want to be in a deficit as little as possible. So I am a big fan of aggressive cuts, whatever weight it is you're trying to lose, as long as you're not putting yourself in medical danger and starving yourself, of course. Losing the weight as quickly as possible, and then staying at maintenance or higher as long as possible. For me personally, I like to hang out around maintenance these days. I'll be 39 this year. I don't have a need for like these big bulks or cuts. I'll do 5 or 10 pound bulk and then just hold it for a long time, and then maybe cut 5 or 10 pounds and hold that for a little bit too. But I don't. I like where I'm at physically. I am much more into performance metrics anyway. So bulks or cuts for me are going to be based on those performance metrics, and facilitating those. It's not a big aesthetic thing for me. I've never been super duper concerned with aesthetics. I want my body to perform, and the aesthetics will follow whatever performance metrics I'm chasing, and my body will look like that in turn. And I'm fine with that. But rambled on there a little bit. Cut as little as possible and maintain or bulk as long as possible. Any experience with Widowmakers? Yeah, I've done Widowmakers. I think it was last year, coming off another back injury. I started with Widowmakers, very light, like 135 Widowmakers, and worked my way up gradually into the lower 300s. I didn't push it because I didn't need to anymore. I was going to get ready for a powerlifting meet after that, so no need to push the sets of 20 anymore. But yeah, they're great for size. Like for 1 rep max strength, they're not really all that. But sometimes, like for breaking a plateau, I think it helps to take a step back from like the 1 rep max specialization and the training for that, and doing something like Widowmakers and progressing those 20s, 4, 6, 8 weeks maybe, and then getting back to the more specific strength training. You put on some serious muscle mass in most cases, and maybe even though the 20s are really hard, your body gets a break from the really heavy weights, and it can really help you when you get back to it, breaking that plateau. So yeah, I think Widowmakers are fantastic. I've always heard you and others talk about load management for injury prevention, but what does that entail exactly? Like, is the standard American block periodization of pulling back to 60% enough? Does it still accomplish its goal if you still go near failure? So load management can be built into any sort of programming, any sort of periodization, be it maybe not Bulgarian. You could, like real Bulgarian though is not, it's the opposite of load management. It's fucking manage the fucking load or die, motherfucker. Um, but you could, do it like a daily single. And so long as you're keeping that daily single, not maximal 3 times a day for multiple exercises, it's fine. It's not pushing too hard, too often, to the point where your body can no longer recover. So with whatever periodization you're doing, I know like West Side, they'll rotate exercises is how they manage the load. So even though they're doing max effort every week, I'm still personally not a fan of that. But others have made it work, and I've backed off a little bit on my disdain for it. Having seen others make it work for them, and I think some of the ones who have made it work, their max effort days even aren't like true max effort in the sense of what it as it's written. So take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, it's knowing when to push and knowing that there's a time to pull back. Like most every bad injury I've had, with little exception, it's just my last back injury wasn't a bad one, but it was an injury nonetheless, and it was me pulling back. But most other every injury I've had, like when I tore my meniscus, most of the times I've yeeted my back, has been pushing on the gas pedal too hard for too long. And with whatever periodization you're using, it does require pulling back, and probably pulling back more often than you want to. In some cases, it can be changing modalities. Some cases, it can be changing movements altogether. Things of that nature. But it's just generally speaking, it's pulling back, and there's not any necessary like this percentage versus that percentage versus that percentage. It's going to be a little bit different for everybody. For some people, it's taking a deload every third or fourth week. Some people, it's changing movements every third or fourth week in conjunction with dialing down the volume. As far as proximity to failure, there's some give and take to it. In my opinion, it's more the overuse with the heavy stuff tends to be where the injuries lie, within not managing the load properly. Like I said, pushing the gas pedal too hard for too long. I think mostly, like, you can keep just say a bench press, for example, or even a squat, and if you're around 50 to 70% taking every set to failure, you can probably get by for a really, really, really fucking long time without having to dial that back one bit. But if you're doing those same movements 95% for 3-4 singles every training session, it's going to catch up to you in a hurry. So and that is more injury conducive, in my opinion. You can have the best form in the world, the safest, most textbook form, but if you're going too heavy, too hard, too often, and not recovering from it, that's going to make you more injury prone than having less than optimal form, but you are keeping these parameters in check. Assuming no injury or necessary time constraints, when would it be time to swap up my gym program, and would you ever recommend working out twice a day? So it would be time to swap up your gym program whenever your current program stops working, or whenever the diminished returns are extremely noticeable. And just powerlifting example, if you run a program and it's a 12-week program and you put 20 pounds on your squat, take a deload, you run it back, put another 20 pounds on your squat, take a deload, run it back, put 10 pounds on your squat, I would still run it after that. I'd run a fourth wave. You put 20, 20, and 10, 36 weeks, less than a year, you've put 50 pounds on your squat. If it kept putting 5 pounds every 12 weeks until it stopped, I would keep fucking doing it. So that's my opinion on that. As far as 2-a-days, if you have the time, I think doing like your main movements, uh, if you're more strength focused, uh, during an AM session, and then maybe like your accessory work during a PM session and or cardio during a PM session, I think it's fine. I think if you're some sort of professional athlete and you don't have a regular day job and you can just sleep and rest and nap in between, and you are well fed and well rested, and that's your job, I think it's fine too. For most average Joes, it's not necessary. If you can manage your volume between the two sessions and you just want to, by all means, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But it's not likely to be something I'm ever going to recommend for most people. What would you recommend consuming to get bulk calories when you can't eat heavy due to a very physical 12-hour job? Liquid calories, Fairlife chocolate milk, or if you're not lactose intolerant, like whole chocolate milk. And I know that's basic as fuck, but chocolate milk and peanut butter, bro, like it's seriously anabolic combination. And try to get in what protein and stuff you can. Maybe put protein powder in your chocolate milk. But liquid calories are going to be your friend. Who do I think is a strength sport athlete who doesn't get enough recognition? Samantha Rice, Quads Like Mom on Instagram. She is, when I envision a professional powerlifter, it is her. She doesn't do flashy shit for Instagram, but she shows up on meet day and fucking performs and is extremely consistent in her meet performances over time. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen her have a bad meet. So her, and then Lucy Underdown. She's the first woman to deadlift 700 pounds. She did it in strongman with straps, so it's a little different than powerlifting, but she fucking deadlifted 700 pounds. Like, what the fuck? And then she most recently deadlifted 300 kilos on a fucking axle bar. Like, holy fucking shit. So definitely those two. And I think Lucy in particular seems to have been getting some traction lately on social media. And that's great. And I hope that continues. I know Samantha in real life, personally. Her grandma lives in the same town I live in, and she comes and trains at my gym when she visits. But again, extremely great power lifter. I believe she's the lightest woman to squat 600 in sleeves or wraps. I'm not sure. I think she isn't. Maybe the lightest just in general, either or, but I'm pretty sure she did it in sleeves. I'd have to go look at open powerlifting. Also, I think Brianni went back and retook the deadlift, but recently Samantha had the heaviest, at the time I think it was the heaviest deadlift, strongman or powerlifting. It was definitely the strongest or heaviest deadlift in powerlifting, women's history. But squats over 600, deadlifts in the middle 600s, and she benches in the mid 300s too. So just fucking, and she she looks like Giga Stacy in my brain. When I hear the word Giga Stacy, I think of Samantha Rice. I think this is a troll question, but I am going to answer it anyway because I think there's some value to be had here. Can deadlift one plate or plate and a half for speedy high reps be an effective cardio? Yes. Anything that gets your heart rate in whatever elevated state that you're looking for your cardio needs is cardio. It doesn't matter if it's on a treadmill, if it's running a trail, if it's sex, if it's deadlifts, if it's bench press, if it's squats, whatever the case may be. If you can get your heart rate elevated to whatever rate you're looking for whatever duration of time that you're looking for, with whatever movement you want to do, yes, absolutely. I work graveyard shifts and normally work out around 1 to 3 p.m. in the afternoon. I still get to put adequate intensity. My problem is sleep. I normally get around 3 to 5 hours of sleep because certain responsibilities. Won't be lucky if I get 7 hours. Love working out. Probably won't slow down anytime. And working out for give or take 12 years, but not as consistent as I wanted to. I probably late intermediate or early advanced. Currently do full body, upper lower hybrid split. I know working out like this isn't optimal and I'm trying to lose weight, but I'm having a hard time doing so because I keep binge eating because of lack of sleep. So yeah, at some point we have to be responsible for ourselves. And yes, lack of sleep can lead to, you know, mental issues, not like diagnosable medical issues. Maybe they can that too. I'm not an expert there. But leads you to wanting to binge eat. And, I was over 300 pounds training, doing cardio 5 days a week, because I ate a lot of fucking food. And at some point, you're just going to have to do this magical exercise called fork downs, where you put the fork down and don't eat as much. I would try to work on sleep habits, of course, and getting more sleep. That said, I would also not get hung up on, being quote unquote suboptimal. You're putting in that consistent effort over time. Ultimately, that trumps everything, in my opinion. That is like 90% of it. The other 10% is what we argue about online. So I think you're doing good in general. I would definitely aim to clean that sleep up, though, and create some sort of habits and patterns to get better and more adequate sleep, which should in turn help with the binge eating. But ultimately, like, that binge eating is on you, and you've gotta have that willpower to say no. No, I'm not really following the Olympic events. I don't really watch a whole lot of TV. I don't have cable, so I've not really been on the up and up with the Olympics. If I could live in any other time in history besides the one which I was born, which would you choose? I would maybe be born like in the middle 60s, and I think being an adult in the 80s would be pretty fucking cool. But otherwise, like, you start going back further than that in history, and shit's pretty fucked up. And people have these romantic ideas of wanting to go back to certain time periods in history. I absolutely do not, because shit was super fucked the further back you go, and I don't think people realize that. So yeah, being an adult in the 80s, I think, would be a whole lot of fun. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's as far back as I'd be willing to go. I like living in the time we're in, generally speaking. So I've kind of already spoke on this, but how do you maximize sleep quality aside from just sleeping and waking at the same time and other basic stuff? Use a CPAP. I never used a CPAP. I've never used hostage tape. I've never tracked like REM sleep or sleep cycles or anything like that, or measured my sleep quality. I do, my phone gives me a general idea of when I go to sleep and when I wake up, because I put my phone down, and then I generally, when first thing in the morning when I get up, I grab it and I take it with me to the bathroom. I go pee, I weigh myself, and as I'm brushing my teeth, I record my weight, and on my app where I record my weight, it has the estimated sleep time from this to that, and if I want to record it. So that's all I really look for to track, is just the general time I was asleep. There may be some value in tracking REM sleep and sleep cycles and these things. I've never looked into it, so I'm not going to speak on it. I go to sleep at the same time every night, and I wake up mostly at the same time every day. And I think for most people, if you can get into that habit and having a habit and trackable pattern of sleep that's relatively the same every night, and it's somewhere between 6 and 10 hours, you're probably doing pretty okay. Peace!